a little bit about where we're headed today. One, I think Dr. Schwartz's comments are really well-founded, and I'd like to kind of roll those forward a little bit, so my kind of down in the trenches view of where we're at. But one, I think I want to talk a little bit about where I think diagnostics have taken us and maybe where they've led us astray. Two, I want to chat a little bit about this concept that we eliminate diseases as veterinarians, and is that really where we're at? Three, I'm really concerned as veterinarians we all are effectively all ADHD. And if we look at our behavior and where are we at, and so thinking about how does that fit, and I'll sign up that I'm not really that. And then I want to really share a really highly biased, non-scientific view of my view of the world about what I think is going on with mycoplasma, and maybe address some of these questions about what's happening. And talk a lot about sow farms. I think we don't understand and really what's the risk of that herd and really what's going on. And then try to wrap it up with some big bucket take-homes. So where are we at with diagnostics? And we have developed a lot of new tools, right? See Aaron straight in the back of the room here, right? We got cool PCRs that are really sensitive, and we got we got DACOs and IDEX and tween 20 ELISAs and the old CF and blah, 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 blah. And so we've got all these tests. And then we as veterinarians stand up there and start running a test and assume that that test is absolutely true. And the problem with this disease is we've got new tests, but we still got the same bug. And we've still got the same challenges in terms of diagnosis. And as an epidemiologist, right, I tend to flip into nerd mode. So I apologize if I go nerd on you here for a minute, but I'm going to do it. We not just think about sensitivity and specificity, but positive predictive values and negative predictive values, and does that rattle around in the back of your head somewhere, right? All that stuff. Well, if you look at them for mycoplasma, we've got real challenges because of the bug itself. We've got an exterior pathogen, right? A bug that lives in an airway. So it's outside the body even though it's in the lung. Oh, by the way, it's in the lung, so we can't just go easily get samples of that ante-mortem. There's some things we're doing with ropes, etc. But again, getting back to Kent's comments about causality, sure, I can find the bug and they're PCR positive, but what does that mean for the herd? Right? I've got a problem that if I measure systemic immunity, it's got jack squat to do with if that pig's protected. Circulating antibodies aren't very important. In terms of projection, they're not predictive of protection. So we get results and we start to believe those results, that they're the gospel. And yet they may not tell us very much about the clinical picture, because I think if you just listen to what Dr. Schwartz said, we don't take the rest of the package together. So I think, right, we've got more tests, more results, and a whole lot more confusion today than what we had 10 years ago, right? Kind of 10 years ago we just accepted, oh, it's mycoplasma. Pigs cough from mycoplasma, you vaccinate them, I give them drugs once in a while, life is good. Today we've got an elaborate approach to diagnostics, and we're out there and we're posting pigs and blah, blah, blah. And I think Dr. Schwartz's comment was, oh yeah, they're vaccinated and they're still positive. What do I do? I mean, that's like the bane of my existence some days. We got mycoplasma out of these, doc. Why did the vaccine work? Well, the vaccine did work, right? Pig probably didn't die of mycoplasma. It was an incidental finding. And so how do we put that into context? And so I think we got a lot of information and maybe less knowledge than we had in the past. Okay, so diagnostics I don't think have helped us out. Secondly, and I really believe this is PRRS' fault, because I want to blame it on something, and we're going to blame it on PRRS, and what the heck, we blame everything else on PRRS. Yeah, throw it in the bus, right? We don't understand mycoplasma very well, so our first response as clinicians tends to be, hey, if we can find the pathogen, we're going to get rid of it. Just easier to eliminate it than it is to deal with it. You notice the title today wasn't controlling mycoplasma. It was controlling enzootic pneumonia. Right? So it's a bug versus the disease concept. What did Dr. Schwartz talk about? Our job is to control disease, right? I'm going to talk about our job description. Right? Our job is to promote health and well-being, make our clients money over the long term by controlling clinical disease, right? That's kind of the veterinarian's job. And so do we really think about as we move forward, are we doing really what the client needs? Better yet, what's the system capable of? Right? We don't raise pigs in a vacuum. We know it's not one barn of pigs, right? Keith talked about pigs in northwest Iowa. We feed a few pigs in northwest Iowa, and we feed some pigs in southeast Illinois, and we feed pigs in a lot of spots. And we've got a lot of sow farms, and right, the argument comes up, oh, should we commingle pigs, or should we not commingle pigs, or blah, blah, blah. Dudes, that's a system. So how does the system function, and what disease do we have around that, and what's the system capable of doing? If I've got 8,000 head finisher sites in 2,500 sow farms with 2,000 head rooms, single source in that site isn't very viable. So to have a strategy that says, oh, we're going to single source and move forward, ain't going to happen. That's not the system I can deal with. So how does that disease function within the system? And can I control the disease within the system, and can I use those tools, okay? So, as I think about that, I think about controlling enzootic pneumonia. There's like a lot of paths to that, not just jumping off the cliff and saying, I've got to go here, I'm going to vaccinate, or I'm going to eradicate. We have to think about that globally in the context of the system. So I said about ADHD, and this may ruin all of us as veterinarians someday. I know it's bit me in the rear end at least, 50 times a week. Those of you know me will fully appreciate that. But, right, we go out as veterinarians, and our job is to solve things. We are going to be the solver, right? Because what do clients pay us to do? Whether we work in the company or not, we get paid to be the solver. So I'm going to go solve it today, and I go put an intervention X in, and when it doesn't work, I just go change it and put in Y. I don't know whether X or Y worked. Why? We don't pay attention quite long enough to measure. As veterinarians, I've looked at this as a group, and me included, we're really, really good doers and kind of crappy measurers. If I took one message away from Dr. Schwartz's speech was, right, I got to tie what's going on disease-wise with all the diagnostics and measure what happened. What was the impact of the change in the system, and did I make it better or not better? Hence it takes time, hence it takes a lot of resource commitment, right? I mean, I've caught myself a lot of times on the finisher barn. I blow in, yep, this is the problem. I post 3 pigs, run out the door, and in 20 minutes I fixed the problem. Fixed it. I was a fixer today. Right? I didn't fix the system. And I didn't think about that. And with this disease, which is chronic, that's really a big take-home. We got to chase it back to the beginning and understand clinically what's happening. How do I collect the data to get around there? So when I make a change, I can measure what the impact of that change was and bring it back to decide if it was worth it or not. Conversely, producers and a lot of veterinarians have a lot of faith in the bottle. Right? All solutions come in the bottle. Last time I checked, 0 solutions came in the bottle. Right? The bottle is a tool that helps us get to the end. It's not the whole deal. Okay? So that's the deal that we've got to be competitive, right? We're working with a client. We've got to get the client over the hump. I've got to get the production guy over the hump. He wants to go do something. He wants to pick up a bottle, right? It's no different in human medicine. I mean, thank God I heard a few pediatricians are actually not giving amoxicillin for earaches anymore. And I was like, ready to do a happy dance? Like, holy crap, they figured it out. Right? But why did they give amoxicillin for earaches? Because mom was frustrated and mom didn't want to listen to that anymore, and I was going to do something, and so I gave them something to do. Guilty of it myself this morning, right? I gave them a bottle of penicillin and told them to go treat pigs. Do those pigs need to be treated? No, we needed to fix the ventilation, so I hope the service guy got there and got the ventilation fixed. But I gave them something to do, and so our tendency is to look at it and say, we can fix this with the bottle, and we don't really go measure the system and say, hey, did the bottle really make any difference or not? Okay? So let's go the right direction. Okay, so where do we screw it up with enzootic pneumonia? And I think the comment was made earlier that we've seen a lot of pneumonia. And I would tell you over the last 10 years, right, we made a lot of changes. But realistically, I look at the last 4 or 5. And I think, Dr. Schwartz, if you look at your ISU data, I looked at our internal prevalence data. And so we've dropped off in the cases submitted over the last 18 months. But the prevalence of mycoplasma positive diagnosis, both clinically and diagnostically, is about double what it was 3 years ago. We have more mycoplasma in the system globally than what we've had in the past. Okay, so what should I do? Well, I should go find my vaccine company and rake them over the coals, right? That should be job 1 because that's a pretty good activity. I must be the wrong vaccine. Oops, we use all kinds of vaccines, so that's probably not the case and there's no difference, right? Okay? So, this is what I know. 1, EP costs a lot of money, but if you really want to blow some cash, have an outbreak of acute mycoplasma pneumonia. Right? So acute outbreaks, so going from negative to positive in herds is a big disaster. And so in my back head, we got to fix that. And we screw that up routinely, and that's why we're going to talk about sows. Number 2, if you look at all the data, all vaccines work. 1 dose, 2 dose, you can give it at 3 days, you can give it at 6 weeks, blah, blah, blah. If we were screwing around with vaccine timing, you know, why don't you get out your witch's brew and just do your witch dance? Okay? The data doesn't support it. If you look at the data, evidence-based medicine, timing is not important, provided 2 or 3 key points. 1, they get the vaccine before there's a lot of transmission in the population. If you vaccinate after they're infected, you're too late. That's the 1 timing piece. Okay? Number 2, if you vaccinate them when they have a lot of diseases, i.e. viruses, that don't work either. Okay, so if they got PRRS and flu stern when you're sticking a needle in their neck, it's probably not going to work. Or number 3, your vaccine crew is completely retarded and can't get the needle in the pig's neck, right? OP doesn't work. Somebody asked what route do we give vaccines. I said, I hope to God most of the time it's IP. And I don't mean intraperitoneal, I just hope it's in the pig. Right? Because 50% of the time we're OP. And so, right? So those are the 3 failure cases. We got a lot of other viruses. I got a lot of OP vaccine administration. Or point 3, I'm vaccinating later, or I got a lot of pressure on those pigs early. Okay? If I meet those 3 criteria, or avoid those 3 criteria, vaccine works. Point number 3, we get really excited about using drugs to eliminate mycoplasma. And if you look at the data, you can't clear mycoplasma repeatedly out of a population with antibiotics. You can get it out of a pig. Okay? I believe Dr. Schwartz uses the term allegedly negative populations. Okay? Remember where we started this conversation about diagnostics? That it's hard to test, hard to know if they're negative, right? You got poor antibody response. They probably go negative 4 months after they were exposed with typical antibodies. I'm blah, 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 blah. And I get somebody saying, oh, these pigs are negative because we bled 10 head. Okay, well, did you pee in their left ear too because it's about as diagnostic? Right? As we think about where we're at, I would challenge us to say, we really don't know what the status of most populations are today because we don't test enough. And when we do test, I'm not sure we got the tools to really, really know. Thirdly, if we think we can eradicate the disease with a drug, the biology doesn't always support that, at least within the population, because you get some resistance, you get carriers, etc. So where does that leave us? That leaves us back to the bloody sow farm. Okay? The sow farm is the problem with this disease, guys. It's sow-to-pig transmission that's the big deal. If you stop sow-to-pig transmission, grow-finished populations stabilize or are in good shape. Okay? That's also the problem. Our ability to do diagnostics in sow farms and understand transmission rates in the sow farm are poor today. Right? We got these big sow farms that we don't test a lot, and if we do test, we don't know. We got a lot of subpopulations because we got them all in stalls. Do we monitor? Do we really know what's going on? Okay? In my experience, and there are 2 people I would like to flog in this world, at least today. This may change next week, but today, there's a couple of people I'd like to flog. 1, the guy who thought the shower in, shower out was a good idea. Because I'm tired of peeling most of my skin off when I'm done, right? Right? Particularly now that the data doesn't really support it. But that guy needs to be flogged and flogged seriously. The second guy is who got crazy with these bloody mycoplasma negative gilts going into commercial sow farms. Right? This is about system capability. So I put a mycoplasma negative gilt into a kind of negative sow farm. Right? What happens, right? Remember that old SIR model from Epi? You know, the triangle, and you've got susceptible, infected, and resistant. You know that stuff. Well, when you tip the teeter-totter too far the one way, i.e. I get too many susceptibles and I don't have all the infecteds out of there, I now get the acute mycoplasma break. Right? We have destabilized, I'll tell you right now, we have destabilized more sow farms with negative gilts than we have anything else. So as we've looked where we had challenges downstream, we've had challenges downstream because we've had negative gilts going into kind of negative sow farms, stable sow farms, and when we put positive gilts in those, life was good. When we put negative gilts in those, we got a lot of shedding downstream. We didn't call congenital disease in the back end. Oh, I forgot to give you my caveat up front. Sows are a necessary evil. Okay? I ran a sow business, and that was beat into my head on a daily basis. Sows are they're only a necessary evil. If we could figure out how to clone them, we get rid of the bloody things. Right? But if you think about it, right, so I got a sow farm that I'm working on that I'm really screwing up downstream because of what I'm doing on the sows. So how do I get them acclimated in the herd? And so I put up there, right, if I could predict what was going on in that sow farm, I could absolutely have this thing by the tail. I can't. So how do I move forward, right? That's kind of the holy grail when we're not there diagnostically. So what are the big take-homes for me? 1, match the gilts to the sows. If you have a positive sow farm, we better find positive gilts to put in there. I.e., we better acclimate them. We better acclimate them early. They can shed for a long time, so this, like PRRS, needs to be acclimated very early into the process, so I'm not dumping positive gilts into that sow farm. Okay? 2, I believe we have to vaccinate all the pigs. Right? It's 15 cents a pig insurance. That's pretty cheap insurance compared to what negative populations are going positive if we don't get them vaccinated. We also believe we've got to vaccinate gilts. That gets back to my basic concept that you do not get a gold star for being mycoplasma negative. Right? We keep score with dollar bills. And the goal at the end of the day is not to have test-negative animals, but to have the most pigs go to the plant in the most efficient manner. And so if I can spend 15 cents and get insurance, I better spend the 15 cents to get my insurance and move over the hump. Okay? And if you have an outbreak, you better be prepared to go get antibiotics because mycoplasma is the ugliest thing I've seen, at least when we mix it with all the other diseases, right? So what are the long-term consequences? 1, this is my political pitch. If you're not aware, FDA has effectively said that they may pull, by the end of the year, all the NADA applications for feed-grade and mass medications by executive fiat. So if that goes away, we could have some more fun in our hands. And so at least strategically, internally, we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we cope with that? What implications does that have? Do we have to look at more mass injectable treatments? What's the theory there? So that's a real deal to me. 2, building systems that we can understand what happens in the sow farm and how we monitor shedding and changes in that sow to pig shedding probably means that we have to have a system so we can figure out what changing interventions we need to have over time. And then 3, I mean, we've got to have more large-scale clinical trials. I think if we don't have those and we don't continue to fund those and we don't continue to do that work, and they're expensive and they're hard and they're costly, but well-designed clinical trials are the one thing we can have and our one tool to help move the ball forward to really understand where we're at.